Sunday school leaders. It's that time. Let's look ahead and see what we've got going on for this Sunday. You know, we're in a brand new unit. The unit is entitled Broken Vessels, How God Uses Imperfect People. We're in week 1. It's called A Fresh Start, out of John chapters 18 and 21. And the point of this lesson is that we fail, Jesus restores. Now, this week's story occurs right after the arrest of Jesus. You know I have embarrassed my wife many times over the years. We can be walking through Walmart and I could just be singing some stupid, silly, made-up song. And she's like, shh, people are going to hear you. But even though I've embarrassed her quite a bit, to my knowledge, she's never denied me or denied being married to me. That may have happened to you, not necessarily in a spousal relationship, but you may have a close friend that acted like they didn't know you, that denied even knowing you. You may have been the one that was a close friend and then distanced yourself from that other friend. Christians oftentimes beat themselves up because they may have done something really terrible in their past or recent past, or they keep running back to that habit or to that sin. They feel, I'm just not worthy to come to church, to be seen, to teach Sunday school, whatever. Well, we need not be discouraged. See, this happened to Jesus's number 1 disciple. When you look at the list of disciples, whenever those are mentioned in the New Testament, Peter is always first. This happened to him. It's interesting. His name means rock. And in our story today, Peter hit rock bottom. That's important to me to get the whole feel of this story, to go back to his original call as a disciple. We can look back in Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. We see that he's out fishing. Peter's out fishing with some other folks. And this voice calls from shore about putting out in the deep water. And, they've been fishing all night. Well, whatever. Okay, so we'll put out in the deep water. And they caught this huge number of fish. They get back to shore. Peter falls at Jesus' feet and says, "Go away from me. I'm a sinful man," because he saw himself in the light of who Jesus is, who Jesus was. We can look over in Matthew chapter 5, verse 19, and in this same story here of Peter and Jesus, we can see this is the time that Jesus issues that call to follow me. Now, we know Peter, man, he's an extreme disciple. He was either hot or cold. He always put his mouth in motion, it seemed, before putting his brain in gear. Now, I've already said that he was the number 1 disciple. He was in that top 3, Peter, James, and John. They were the guys on the Mount of Transfiguration. Peter, he's witnessed countless miracles, miracle after miracle, of healings and water into wine, all these things. But on the night of Jesus' betrayal, Jesus predicted that all of his disciples would fall away. And what did Peter say? He said, I'm not going to do that. Everybody else can fall away. Everybody else will deny you. I will never do that. And Jesus says, well, before the rooster crows, you will have denied me 3 times. No, not just once, but 3 times. And Peter's got to be thinking, man, there's no way this is going to happen. So what happens? The arrest happens. Peter continues to follow Jesus, but he follows him at a distance. He's close enough to see, but he's not close enough really to be associated with Jesus. And then while he's warming himself by the fire, there's a servant girl and 2 others that they say, man, this guy looks familiar. And even his accent, even Peter's accent, gives him away because he has a Galilean accent. We can tell usually when people are from Wisconsin or from the South, or, there's even Virginia accents. And, we have these different accents. We can tell sometimes where people are from just based on their accents. This happened in this area too. Peter had a Galilean accent. And so the girls noticed that. Aren't you one of this man's disciples? Aren't you one of Jesus' disciples? He was asked this 3 different times from these 3 people. He was asked 3 times, and 3 times Peter denied. It went from a simple denial, no, I don't know him, to Peter calling down curses on himself. I don't know this guy. And then what happened? The rooster crowed. And Jesus turned and looked at Peter. And it must have cut Peter to the core. Because again, he saw himself for who he was. He saw himself as guilty, as a liar, as a traitor. Now let's skip forward a few days. It's a familiar scene. It's almost the same scene as 3 years prior. Peter has returned to his secular job of fishing. Jesus is on the shore. They don't know it. The people in the boat, they don't know that's Jesus. But Jesus is on the shore. Hey guys, have you caught anything? And the answer is no. No, we haven't caught anything. Try the other side of the boat. Familiar result. Too many fish to even haul into the boat. The disciples get back to shore. And this is where Jesus and Peter have that exchange of dialogue that we see in John chapter 21, verses 15 through 19. This is a core part of our lesson this week. And Jesus asks Peter, do you truly love me more than these? What's the these? Now, I'm thinking that the these that Jesus is referring to here are the other disciples. You remember back earlier, Peter said, although the other disciples will betray you, they will desert you, but not me. Because Peter's love for Jesus was so strong, I'll never deny you. I'll never betray you. Jesus comes now 3 days later and says, do you really love me more than these? And so when we get into the dialogue of Peter and Jesus, there are various interpretations here. And you probably have heard this preached or in another Sunday school lesson, that Jesus asks Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, you know I love you. And that the Greek verbs there are different. There's the agapao verb, that's like agape, that's that godly, selfless love. And Peter and Jesus says, do you agapao me? Do you love me with that self-sacrificing love? And Peter replies, Lord, you know I philo you. I love you with that brotherly love. Now, and that goes back and forth. You'll see some different interpretations on that. Some people say that's a very meaningful that those two different verbs are used. And you'll have other commentators that say those words are often used interchangeably, and so it really doesn't matter. So let's not even go there. At least I'm not going to go there unless somebody brings it up. But here's the point. Regardless of if those verbs are really significant in their difference or not, here's the point. Jesus loved Peter. Even though Peter betrayed him, even though Peter betrayed their friendship and he denied him, Jesus loves him. Jesus restored him to a position of leadership. He said, feed my lambs, take care of my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep. All these commands to Peter to get back into what I called you to do. Remember, 3 years ago I called you to follow me, and here you are back at your secular job of fishing. And that's how he ends the conversation. Follow me. So the story of Peter's call to ministry and that of his restoration of ministry are like matching bookends. What are the similarities here? Well, the Sea of Galilee, there's fishing, there's either try the other side of the boat or go out to deeper water. There's too many fish to bring in, and there's that command to follow me. But for Peter, following Jesus is going to be more than just service. It's going to involve sacrifice as well. We can look down in verses 18 and 19, and we see that Jesus says, when you were younger, you went where you wanted to go. When you're older, your hands will basically be bound and you will be led to where you don't want to go. And the Bible tells us why Jesus said this. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death that Peter would have that would glorify God. So what does this have to do with us? Well, it's one thing to be saved from a lifestyle of sin. We can look in the Bible. We see the woman at the well. We can see tax collectors and prostitutes. And even today, we celebrate when people turn from a lifestyle of sin and turn to Christ. It's another thing for a Christian when they fall and fail miserably. And that's exactly what happened to Peter. Peter failed miserably. And we can be hard on those in our congregation or our Sunday school class who have experienced those moral failures. Those people are broken. They are broken vessels. And it's good to know that God can take those broken people, those broken vessels, and give them a fresh start. And that's the whole purpose of this 6-week unit, is to look at us when we fail, when we are those broken vessels, that God can take us and restore us and put us back where we need to be. I like to think of it as when we stumble and fall and God picks us up, dusts us off. Maybe there's some discipline needed. Maybe it's just some love that's needed, and puts us right back on that track of where we need to be. So there's two extremes that we really need to avoid. We've got condoning and condemning. We can see people in their moral failure and just come right behind them and say everything's going to be okay and follow your heart and all these little pithy sayings, and it looks like we're condoning their behavior because we don't want to confront them. So we can condone, but we can also go to the other extreme. And Christians just depend on who they are. They usually fall into one of these two categories. They can condone or they can condemn. And that's, they've made a moral failure of some kind, and that's it. They've cut off relationships that won't have anything to do with them. So as you think about people in your church or in your Sunday school class, do you know of anybody like that? They have failed miserably? Is there somebody there that people just really avoid? Is it possible for you or members of your class to befriend those people? You know, we need to remind our class that our group needs to be a safe place for restoration. When something happens, that we're there to not condone, not condemn, but to support and help restore and get them right back on the right path. It's not a place for gossip. It's not a place for shunning and condemnation. You know, if your Sunday school class likes music, especially contemporary music, you might play the song by Matthew West called Mended. It's about 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Let me just tell you some of the lyrics from that. It goes right along with this lesson. It says, you see worthless, but I see priceless. You see pain, but I see a purpose. You see unworthy, undeserving, but I see you through the eyes of mercy. When you see broken beyond repair, I see healing beyond belief. When you see too far gone, I see one step away from home. When you see nothing but damaged goods, I see something good in the making. I'm not finished yet. When you see wounded, I see mended. Let's try to look at folks in our congregation, in our Sunday school class, through those eyes of grace and help get those people back on the road to where they need to be. And maybe we can be some of the instruments that God uses to help mend those people. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. And you'll see me next week.